Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the first in what I hope will be a series of many episodes. Hopefully, we'll kind of introduce you to some folks that we don't know, people that are new to our group of humans, people who have things to talk about, things to show you, opportunities, projects. I like this a lot. This idea has been in the back of my mind for a while. A lot of people do presentation streams, and I thought, hey, why not give it a shot? So, on that note, welcome everybody to the very first, and again, the series that I hope will be here for a while, for some time. And on that note, I'll drop the music out in the background. I have a special guest that's about to join us. They're right now currently working on getting to a better circumstance and situation with their streaming device. So as soon as that happens, they'll join us and we'll go from there. But the idea once again, is to promote different people in our group of humans and hopefully expose us all to a variety of things, whether it's a comic book, a pulp magazine, or even some electronic wizardry. In fact, we have the guest that's with us today who has done some of that, or some of that very thing. It created some electronic wizardry that's a little different than anything you've ever seen. So with that being said, and in good hopes that our guest is ready. I'm waiting for our guest to give us a thumbs up here, hopefully. Not quite yet. All right. Getting close. Very good. All right. And we are up and running. I'd like to introduce you to Star Trek Tinkerbelle. Hello, Tink. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and I would like to introduce everybody to Tink. You may have seen Tink on a variety of different streams if you're a person that enjoys the content of Orville Nation, our friend PJ, or if you got an opportunity to hang out with our friend The Place to Be Reviews just a few days ago. Tink has been making her way around to talk about something amazing that she's put together. So, with that being said, just a few questions, if you wouldn't mind, because I'd like you to introduce yourself and how you came to be where you are, and how you're part of the appreciation of you're a part of fandom. You appreciate the mythos and the storytelling of a very obviously very specifically Star Trek, but many other things as well. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, I go by the moniker Star Trek Tinkerbelle. I've been doing that since January. Well, probably before January, but hardcore since before January 2019. And I, whew, I've been part of Star Trek since before I was born. I was born 5 months before Star Trek aired. And that's usually how I start. I didn't see it until it hit syndication in the 70s. And then it it immediately captured us. There were about 15 kids on the base in the U.S. Air Force where I was. And we would all play on farm equipment, and then we'd go biking together, and everybody took a different character. And I would always take Uhura or sometimes Sulu. And, we just tried different things. And we play together being the characters. At that point, I was a Native American adoptee to the Sioux Nation. And so I had already started changing my hair and changing my culture over into theirs. And that was something my father had also agreed to and joined. My mom, of course, freaked out, and they eventually got a divorce. And she took me out of state before Wounded Knee 2 happened, because we were also part of that process. So I've been with the Sioux Nation for a long time. I got into book publishing and book selling and all of that kind of stuff in the 90s. And I was helping authors with their books, either reading it or giving publishing advice. Although I hadn't created a full-on publishing program at that point, I was still just a bookseller and a great American independent bookseller. But then I had Len Lamendorf, and he did a wonderful book called Crouching Dragon, where the teenagers flew in airplanes, very old airplanes. And no matter how well he described it, there was no way even I, as a pilot's daughter, could visualize what it was he was saying. And so I convinced him fortuitously to implement visuals of the cockpit of the airplane itself. He had Paris, France has 3 different layers to the city: underground tunnels and rivers and catacombs. And so to help the kids visualize, he included maps on either side of the book. And he did a lot of things that most authors don't do, because many, I won't say most, but many authors refuse to listen to their editors. I think they're always right. And he was just a real joy to work with. And he implemented everything I said. And as a result, he won the Benjamin Franklin Award for that year, which is like the Pulitzer Prize, but for young adults. And it usually involves some type of scientific or like Benjamin Franklin, some type of tinkering that you wouldn't normally see. And so it was really great for both of us to get that kind of acclaim. And it really showed me that that was a way I wanted to go as a publisher when I got into publishing. And so I started my own publishing house, and it's family owned and operated, and it scales up and it scales down depending on what kind of work we have and what our workload is. And when it's really big, then we scale into the Sioux Nation and offer work to the tribe. Everybody's creative. Many of them have technical degrees from their 2 different technical institutes, one in South Dakota and one in North Dakota. So it's just been a lifelong dream to make sure that everybody had work. And so when I saw Star Trek Discovery doing all the beautiful, amazing work that they were doing, Ted Sullivan on, I don't know if you remember, there was a show called After Trek. And so Star Trek Discovery would come on and, oh, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. Say it again. You froze. Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Okay. So Ted Sullivan was on After Trek with Matt Mira, and he mentioned that he was looking through a props Bible that was essentially a photo album with page inserts, and it was overflowing, and it had every possible visual prop he could want or desire, but it was overflowing and barely held everything they already had after only 1 season. And I looked at that and I went, I can do that. And I can do that really well, because I had transitioned from a paper book to an electronic book form a while, probably about a year or 2 earlier. And I'd been part of the Star Trek fandom with Star Trek Continues, which is really the Renaissance launching point to Discovery. And Star Trek Continues is the core and the foundation to Discovery. So a lot of the things that fans either liked or didn't like started in Star Trek Continues as a discussion between the fans, Vic Mignogna, Todd Halbercoin, and their entire crew, as well as Jonathan Frakes and Rod Roddenberry. They were all there on Facebook as each episode was released. And so, when people accuse like Alex Kurzman of doing something wrong or different with Star Trek, it actually was the fans and Star Trek Continues having a conversation that started the whole thing, as well as just the love of Star Trek being voracious and passionate in that presentation, along with Star Trek Phase and Axar. They really created a wonderful visualization for CBS and Viacom and Paramount, that the fans wanted the franchise back. The franchise hadn't been active in almost 10 years, but the fans had been active.
Yeah.
So there was that.
You,
And
you and I,
so
you and I both
by the
shared.
time I saw,
You and I both shared a love for.
say it again.
You and I both shared a love for the series. Star Trek Continues and Anaxar and all the other fan projects. So I'm sure we crossed paths there at some point way back in the day. And you're right. I mean, it created this new renaissance of or an idea of getting back to some actual Star Trek being, on television and back in film and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so when Ted described the props Bible, I was all on board. He mentioned it in Actor Trek, but then he also mentioned it in an article that I read in January 2019. But prior to the two, because After Treks happened directly after the episode in December of 2018, and then the article was in 2019. But in that shift in between, I was working at a warehouse, and I was dreaming up ways to make Star Trek work better, because at that point the fans had already sort of backlashed with the violence and said they didn't want as much of the violence as was being seen. And so I was sitting there listening to everything everybody was saying, and I sent in what I called the Star Trek Tinkerbelle game plan. And that was several different things. And people can go on Twitter and look at the game plan by putting my Twitter handle in, at 5D Chief, D as in David, and then Star Trek Tinkerbell game plan. They can find it and look at it themselves. But so I did several things at one time in that January. I was just like on fire. I was in a warehouse working 70 hours a week, and I had lots of time to think and be creative in my head as I was shipping things out to people like crazy for Christmas. And it was a lot of fun. And so that was the very first contract that I did with CBS. And they enacted half of the contract, which in the state of California is considered a handshake. A handshake. And so that was me doing creative and research work in exchange for a job. Disney is well known for having Imagineers. They're the ones who pretty much came up with the concept of Imagineering. But Star Trek had never had Imagineers. They always had NASA engineers contact them and tell them how to fix things. They always had Sagan or other scientists show up or describe the planets better. So the visuals got improved over time. But I had an Imagineer, and I also was hoping that they would merge Paramount and CBS back together. And anytime there's a merger, there's a huge mess of people that stay and people that go. And I wanted a job when everything cleared. If they found that my work was useful. If they didn't, well, then that would be a different story. But the typical researcher for Star Trek makes between 67,000 and 125,000. And I was doing all of it basically for free in exchange for work. And when a job didn't come through,
Oh no. Okay, hopefully she bounces back. Sorry, guys, we're doing this with a remote connection, so hopefully we get Tinkerbelle back. Oh, Tink's gone for the moment. That's fine. And look, the whole crux of it is Tinkerbell's working on a essentially a props Bible that you and I and anybody else could actually utilize and get a chance to see. So I'm pretty stoked about it. It's something that's really cool. I actually have a short video that I'm going to show when we get towards the end, right before she talks about the future of this project, and it looks like we've got her back now. So let's bring her back in. You're back. You're back.
I'm back. I always try.
Yeah.
I'm probably the most dedicated person when it comes to doing these.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And so I was just telling them that you've worked very diligently on putting together this kind of a props Bible, this kind of a visual and tactile experience that they can get electronically, or they will be able to utilize electronically. Do you want to explain how that's going to come to be?
Yeah. So when you have a give you a little bit more background.
Yeah.
I've been in theater before. I'm part of Legion M, which is a fan-based film studio. I took Silicon Valley Comic-Con the third year with Steve Wozniak. I worked in the Silicon Valley off and on over a 20-year period. I've worked for NASA. I've worked for a laser company, a medical laser company. I worked at the city of San Jose in the Office of Economic Development. So being in the Silicon Valley, you tend to think differently. And creative Imagineering is a natural thing for me. So during the Comic-Con, Steve Wozniak's Comic-Con, I took probably 8 hours of classes every day, more of how to part of the scenes, filmmaking, how to join groups in the Silicon Valley to develop films in 24 hours and then take them to film festivals. And it's when I joined Legion M. And so my way of being in the industry is always behind the scenes, helping produce things. So it was natural when I thought, hey, I can take these books and I can help them produce the shows, not necessarily fast, but streamline them. You've got Legion M. Love them. My favorite. And so by streamlining, I mean that the process of making a costume is going to take X number of days no matter what. But the process of deciding which out of 12 costumes is going to be the one is a really painstaking process for most of Star Trek. Most of the series always lagged in getting to production and actually getting on set. And so I wanted to streamline that and shorten that process. So if And no matter what, when you pay, for example, if you're paying a costume designer to design Lux Toy's outfit and her hair wig when she's locked in the elevator with Odo, you might go through 20 of them because she'll be in that costume for the entire shoot of that episode. Um, and there might be, 10 outfits that are not chosen, but CBS will have still paid for them. So when I'm thinking as a creative Imagineer about a book, I'm thinking of ways to save money, save time, not necessarily push them to go faster, but to clear things out of the way for them. And so I developed this electronic book that is like a Sears and Roebuck catalog, so they could see everything, including designs they didn't choose. We called that the Ship of the Dead graveyard of ideas. And then as they ordered it, if it needed to be in Iceland or if it needed to be in LA, they could ship through UPS or Federal Express and actually see the process at any point in time as it was going through the shipping process and know where it was exactly. And same thing if it went from a film studio to a LA and then to the Smithsonian, to a Comic-Con in Germany, you could track it through the book offline.
Right.
So I created something really specific for this book. I started making, I want to say in February, because I got on the prop master's calendar, but he didn't have time for me until after production of season 2. And almost May, June was when we were aiming for getting me in for a meeting. So I
Right.
built the vast majority of the book long before he ever saw anything. And
Right.
like, what would it look like? And my goal, as a publisher was to make it visually beautiful, stimulate even the people reading it. That whatever they were doing, Star Trek was going to be stimulate people to a lot of photographs from NASA's free public library, as well as friends of mine who were in space, seeing photographs in there from them. Um, and it's just visually pretty and gorgeous. And of course, then there's some photographs of the mural at the Aeronautics Space Museum in Washington, D.C. that I took. So I did have as much input before CBS even gave me an opportunity, and even verbiage, like literally I had to write everything that was being said in the book, as well as create links and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a big, long process, but by the time we sat down, if you saw the the video of our first meeting, it was like, oh my Lord, we need this. I need this. So I knew I had something really special. So if you want to show the book so they
I
can see it, because
Yeah.
I've tried showing all the shows before,
Mhm.
like paper version, but
Mhm.
you really don't get it until you see that it's so interactive.
Yeah. It is very,
And
very
you're going to
cool.
be
And
the
so,
first. Everybody is seeing this for the very first time.
yeah, yeah. And this is Tinkerbell's presentation that she sent me. So I'm going to throw this up on the screen and we'll get started here immediately. So here we go, Tink. There you are. Hey, that's you. All right, here we go. Hopefully you guys can hear it.
The Star Trek Tinkerbelle, and I built studios
All right, I'm going to give this another go. I'm sorry, Tink. It looks like I didn't share the audio. So we'll try again.
Immediately to the props master, you could. You can flip to different parts and read different parts. And we have, turn it sideways so you can see. We have different chapters, and you can literally go back and forth, and everything is interactive. It all moves. You can hear things turn on. And then some of it, some of it actually flips around and moves. If you wanted to create a post-it and send it immediately to the props master, you could. And if you wanted to go to the glossary, you could jump and you could learn all about the prop, who made it, what artists, what episodes they were used in, and jump right back. And you could see how they were built, literally, how everything about the building of it. And then you could see the actor actually in it. So it's very cool. And some of the ideas that we were hoping to do were to have the actors come in and show how to use some of the work. So here's one of the swords. It's a scimitar, and we were hoping to have Mary Chifo and Jane show their choreography so that actors at some point in the future, maybe 5 years down the line, maybe 50 years down the line, could look back at what they did and then make something new because they could see what happened before. So it was just a real joy to do. And of course, the glossaries are huge. So we have all kinds of stuff built in. And this is basically what we did. It was a book that they could have offline and use any way they wanted in secret. And to the best of our knowledge, this wonderful man that we truly adored is part of the group that took it. And we need your help in our crowdfunding to gain the legal funds to bring CBS back to the negotiation table because the work still has to be done. Cataloging 55 years of props and costumes and prosthetics, and we still want to do the job. So if you can, follow the links and learn more about how you can support us. Thank you.
And there you go, guys. I don't know what went on with the sound. I did it in as many ways as I could to boost the sound and get it to be louder. I don't know what that was, but I'm very excited. The goal here is to put some funds together for the legal case to reacquire the book and bring CBS back to the negotiating table to complete this project. And I think Tink can explain a little bit further about that.
Yeah, so there's actually two funds. Let's see, two funds. One is for the legal hardship that I'm now experiencing, 10 months without work, 7 months without unemployment. I finally got a part-time job, and I'm doing the best I can to pay 4 months of back rent as well as develop money to move into a different location because where I'm at, I can't stay. And it's not because, well, while there's lots of bad things about where I'm at, it's mainly just too crowded. All the belongings that we have are crowded. The other person in where I'm at was a student out of college, and when school finished, then all of that stuff came back into the area where we're at. So we physically can't be in the same spot anymore. But to be without work, and of course, all the funds from when this would have sold just
Right.
literally destroyed my finances and all my projections for the year financially, how to get through COVID, from home, because I could have done all of this from home. At least the very first cataloging could have been done from home. For doing
Right.
everything for the last 55 years, well, that I would need to take tribal groups and family groups who are photographers and models and go into the warehouses and literally take photographs if there are not already photographs available. So everything pretty much blew up. Yeah, pretty much financially destitute. And it's interesting. A friend asked me literally today, she's like, how can you be smiling? You're looking at being evicted. You have serious problems in front of you. And I'm like, well, when you're Native American, bad things happen. Windy Two, Custard Land Stand, Standing Rock. I was the executive officer for security and intelligence at Standing Rock. So I investigated a group called Tiger Swan that literally came in and started shroud and killed a dog and a horse and started heart attacks to the elders. Um,
Right.
so I immediately went home to help my tribe have expressed their rights to protest and pray and protect them as best I could. So bad things happen. It's part of being Native American in America. Because while, and people don't realize this, but when you have a piece of property, let's see, if you have a land that you've owned for 25,000 years, and government and a colonizing group, stand on top of that property, they how do I explain this? They own everything above the ground, but they don't own the ground. You're sovereign. You still own everything that's underneath all those structures. And so the last century was a real evolution. No, we're still here. We're not dead in a history book. We're still here and we're part of your society. We're not on the outside, and we're not going to be genocide and just disappear for you. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. And we want to go back into being part of our society. And Gene Roddenberry really made strong efforts in Star Trek from the very beginning of Star Trek with all the Native American stories. So the Miramonte story, the tribal stories. Let's see, I'm going to say it wrong. The episode that's famous for the Vietnam War discussion amongst Star Trek, where there's like a gorilla with horns, the Mugatu gorilla. The tribe groups were actually based a lot on Native American cultures, and putting weapons between the tribes and egging them on. That was happening in Vietnam, but it also happened with the tribal nations. So Gene always made an effort to have us in the shows to share our stories with people. So you see Native American tribal groups in TNG, you see them in
Yep.
Discovery, you
Mhm.
see them in even DS9
Yeah.
had tribal groups. And
Yeah.
so working on Star Trek just about having jobs, also about giving back to his vision and his legacy, helping
Right.
them build Star Trek so that you guys could see the best possible version of the show. Because a book like this, like I said, would give them, it would bring everything together in such an organized fashion that they could do things better. And
Yeah.
I wasn't just building the book, like I said, I was also doing research. So
Right. Yeah.
if
A lot of what you're doing requires a ton of research in order
uh,
to keep everything straight. Absolutely.
say that again.
I said a lot of what you're doing requires a ton of research in order to keep everything straight. Because knowing one phaser from another, knowing what episode something appeared in from another, incredibly important. And being able to get this together and then have it be something that people can get their hands on. That's absolutely brilliant. So I'll get the links from you for both of these efforts, and I'll make sure that they're in the description for this video. And so on the replay, when people catch up with it during the weekend, they'll be there for them. Okay. Excellent. Any final thoughts that you want to present about the projects
That'd
at
be
all?
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the final thing is just that people need to know seriousness of what happened. So they were actually, the first one is what you guys just saw, and
Mhm.
90 to 95% of that book was all me and all my work. The prop master donated 3 paragraphs to the Pike story, and there were maybe 4 to 5 files that was theirs that had not already been released.
Mhm.
Virtually everything you saw had already released by CBS and the props master into Twitterland.
Right.
So it wasn't anything new, and it was already in the public eye. So that's why I could show you that first book. But there was a second book, and the
Mhm.
second book was not encrypted, and that's the one they actually stole. They literally took it and said that they were going to do it in house. And then that was the very first threat. And so when they did that, it never occurred to me after working with them for a year and a half on the same team that they were going to take our electronic file. So my comment to them was about, if your people, the first book and the technical knowledge to do what I just did, that have already done it. So they don't have the ability to do it. We're the only ones on the planet who have 900 years of working in militaries to understand the armory and how to present the material well enough. We're the only ones who have the Silicon Valley technical skills. And if you bought the book, you're not buying our technology, you're buying our creativity, because if we find better technology, we'll build it with something else. It'll never be obsolete. It'll always be updated every 2 months for you, regardless of the technology, by us. And
Right.
they were buying 5 years of service.
Right.
Sorry, five
Oh, please. Yeah.
five
Yeah. Go
years
ahead.
of service for $10,000, which works out to, yeah, it works out to $167 a month, which was nothing, absolutely nothing. But I think COVID really threatened them. It changed their industry. So I have a lot of compassion for them, and I don't want people to trash them in that they're horrible, terrible monsters. These are the best people I've ever worked with. They're conscientious, they're generous, their expectations are incredibly high because your expectations of what you watch are incredibly high. But two people, the first threat and the second threat, two people specifically, they made. So at the very least, we want an apology that's public so the fans know this will never happen again. And we want to work. And so, if people want to help with the legal battle, that's wonderful. But if all they want to do is help me not go under financially and get into a new place to live that's reasonable. My rent is next to nothing. I mean, most people will be shocked, but Lakota are used to living very little. And so my rent is $250 a month. That's unheard of, but I've seen so many different difficult periods in my life that I the less rent compared to anything else around, just because I never know when things going to go wrong. You would be surprised. Think, okay, she's very Euro. She looks just like any other European person, and I am very much. But a lot of times when people realize that you're basically a liaison for a Native American tribe, then all of a sudden they change their perception. You become the other. You become the unknown, and they get scared. A lot of prejudices, like, oh, well, maybe she drinks or things like that. And so there's a lot of things to work against. So if people can just help me with the financial part of finding, paying back rent and then getting into a new place, that would be fabulous. The main thing that needs to happen with CBS is financially getting with the legal team or with the attorney general or even the State Department, because we're a sovereign nation and they broke a contract with a sovereign nation, not just with a business owner who would be a woman, but with an actual sovereign nation. But to get them to the negotiation tables, we don't want money. There's nothing that money can buy for us. We want the work. We want to physically do the work, and maybe only 5 years. So we don't know. They don't even know. Basically, CBS took over the franchise and didn't do a lot with it for 10 years. So they might not know themselves how much work there is. And so we want the work. And to give everybody an understanding of what it's like on the reservations. Two main reservations that I interact with are Pine Ridge, which is in South Dakota, and Cheyenne Rivers. And Pine Ridge, well, I don't know what their numbers for suicide rates when thing long were so horrific. We declared a state of emergency because it was 50 a month. So during COVID summer, we had over 55 suicides a month because it's hard to be on the reservation. There's about 40,000 people, and many of them have no work. The median income is 11,500. So if you take the highest income and the lowest income and you average them out, the median is 11,500. So it's just really a tough situation for people who already have college degrees. It's even tougher because they might have student loans, but they're also in a very prejudiced state, hard to get work. So it's all about the work. And so if people want to donate, $5 to one and $5 to other, that's perfect. The biggest donation we saw was $5.50, and I'm grateful for anything. Anything to help at this moment would just be wonderful. We're about 10 days away from CDC moratorium being over and possibly entering into.
Yeah, and that's awful, and it's one of the things that we're all going to try to prevent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect the links. I'm going to make sure that I put them in the description link, guys. For those of you out there in the chat, and those of you who see this video later, please support everything that Tink's trying to do in the recovery of the lost project, which is obviously a wrong, and in support of her obviously current circumstances, which are also not good. So it doesn't take a whole lot, as with any of these types of campaigns, but you are not only supporting a person, you're supporting an entire project that I think is fantastic. So Tink, I appreciate, number one, how brave you are for coming on here, and dealing with all of this is very difficult, I know.
Thank you.
And I really truly appreciate the time that you're able to spend with all of us, because you're sacrificing a bunch of time to talk to a bunch of different creator channels, and anything we can give back would be incredible. So guys, if everybody out there, all the folks that are in the chat, I need to work on that, but if you can, please look at this link I'm going to post right now in the chat right now for the GoFundMe, and then we'll move on from there. And I'll make sure that this is also in the thing. So here, I just posted it. I just posted the link in the chat, and I'm going to be adding it to the descriptive right now, so that when anybody watches this video, they'll be able to click on that donation link and help contribute here. So with that being said, do you have any final words that you'd like to say, Tink? Anything you'd like to speak to really quickly?
Thank you. Not much else I can think of. There was done afterwards that was probably more serious, but again, that dovetails back into the apologies. Native American people don't believe. Well, I'm not going to say we don't. There's over 500 tribes, so we all have different beliefs. But for the majority, we don't believe in throwing people out the airlock, so to speak, and throwing them away. The props master, whatever was in his head when he made his threats to us, we know he's a good person. He is one of the most brilliant prop masters out there. We would hate to see him lose his. That's not something we want. The executive who made a threat to us, we also don't want to see him lose his job. We just want the work. We've been through everything under the sun in the last century, and we want the century to be better. And we want Gene's vision to be taken care of by people that actually care enough to uphold the belief being promoted. If they made the wrong choice and stole our work, then that's a philosophical conversation they need to have with a therapist.
Right.
And CBS should even pay for that for them. Nobody else in that room, to my knowledge, was part of the theft.
Right.
And
Right. That's I just
we felt nothing but love. The vast, I'm not going to tell you everybody in the tribe believed they would follow through with jobs. We've seen so many things fall apart that we had a lot of people that were just, I don't think they're going to do it. You know, it looks great, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I just kept saying, I think they're different. I really, I spent a year and a half. I think we've got something really good here. And it's just always a constant battle for us to believe, have faith that will follow through on something they do. We've had so many treaties get broken. We've had our heart get stomped on so many times. And it really takes positive a positive belief system and a spiritual belief system to believe that even if it goes wrong, that maybe we can get it back on track. And that's what I really would like us to see is, and fans to see. Fans should know that if CBS does something wrong, that they will get back on track and they will make amends, and the fans can have faith that they're going to do what they're supposed to be doing, which is promoting Gene's vision, not theirs.
Absolutely. Well, very well said. And again, thank you, Tink, for your bravery coming on here and for making us aware and for all the work that you did that we would all love to see. Guys, again, I put the link in the chat just a moment ago. It's also in the description now. So for those of you watching on the replay, if you can, if you will, please help out. If I get access to the other link, I can help out as well. But thank you so very much for your time, Tink. I appreciate you. And thank you all out there for supporting me in this channel, which would also include
Thank you.
well, obviously, yeah, Lola Meets, who granted me a very generous super sticker of $20. Believe me, I will pass on that love here shortly. And beyond all of that, I'll end the stream the same way I always do. And I'm sure you're going to be able to find Tink a lot of other great places, including back on with PJ over at Orville Nation. Be sure to take care of yourself, guys. Take care of others. Wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time,
Yes.
bye.